At a party, my boyfriend laughed and said, "She's basically my maid with benefits, cleans my apartment, pays half the rent, but way too boring to actually date." When I got up to leave, he grabbed my wrist and shouted, "She won't go anywhere, watch." His friends laughed while he blocked the door, waving my purse. I smiled, sat down, and let him think he won. The next morning, his mom called me in tears, saying, "Please, just talk to him." It was one of those nights that felt just a little too loud from the start. The music was bass-heavy, people were drunk before I even got there, and the floor was already sticky with spilled beer. I wasn't in the mood for a party, but Tyler insisted. "Babe, it's just one night. Come on, all my friends are going to be there." "You never go out with me anymore," he'd said, hand on my waist, that practiced smirk on his face. So I went. Because I always did. We'd been living together for 6 months at that point. It wasn't glamorous. Tiny apartment, creaky floorboards, mismatched dishes, but it was ours. Or, more accurately, it was mine, and he happened to live in it too. I paid most of the rent. I cleaned. I did the grocery shopping. He played video games and swore he was working on building a business. But I'll get to that later. That night, I remember wearing this blue cropped sweater he once said made my eyes pop. Funny thing is, he hadn't complimented me in weeks. Not even a glance when I came out of the bathroom, fully dressed, hair curled. He just grunted, "You ready?" and walked out the door. At the party, I stuck to the kitchen. It was quieter there. I chatted with a couple of girls I vaguely knew and sipped my drink slow. Tyler was already on his 3rd beer, planted firmly in the living room with his crew. He always came alive around his friends, louder, cockier, more sarcastic. And then it happened. I didn't even hear the beginning of the conversation, but his voice suddenly boomed over the music. "She's basically my maid with benefits. Pays half the rent, scrubs the toilet, and lets me smash. What more could a guy want?" My heart dropped. The whole room erupted in laughter. I stood frozen, one hand still holding my cup. "Dude, savage," someone shouted. Another voice chimed in, "Damn, you said that in front of her?" I didn't know what to do. My body moved before my brain caught up. I walked toward the door, silent. No tears. No yelling. Just this eerie calm. And then Tyler grabbed my wrist. "Hey, where are you going?" he said, laughing like this was all some inside joke. "Sit down. Look, guys, she doesn't even have the guts to walk away. Pathetic, right?" They laughed again. I didn't. I looked him in the eye, smiled the way you do when someone underestimates you, and sat down. But inside, I was already gone. He thought I was weak. He thought I'd let this slide like everything else. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that this was the last time I'd ever play the part of the quiet, obedient girlfriend. And I had already started planning my exit. You know what's messed up? I still smile when I think about the first time we met. It was at a Halloween party. I was dressed as a lazy last-minute witch, black dress, boots, cheap pointed hat. He was a giant hot dog. I'm not kidding. Full foam suit, ketchup streak, and everything. He made a joke about how we were both technically edible, and for some reason, I laughed so hard I snorted. That was it. He kept making me laugh the entire night. Tyler had this effortless way of pulling people in. He was the type to remember random facts you mentioned once in passing, or text you just to say, "Hey, I hope work doesn't suck today." And when we started dating, it felt like I'd found something real. Familiar, even. Like I'd finally stepped into the kind of relationship I always saw other people post about: spontaneous road trips, falling asleep on the couch during movie nights, forehead kisses in the morning. The first 3 months were full of spark. He wrote me little notes and left them in my jacket pockets. He'd show up outside my work with coffee and a dumb grin. He always said I was the calm in his chaos, and I honestly believed it was sweet, not a setup for him to dump all his chaos on me later. The "I love you" happened fast. 6 weeks in. We were watching old reruns of The Office, our legs tangled under a blanket, and out of nowhere, he looked at me and said it like it was the most natural thing in the world. "I love you, you know that, right?" I just blinked at him. Then I whispered it back. I meant it too. When he suggested moving in together after 6 months, it didn't feel crazy. Rent in our city was ridiculous, and I was already spending most nights at his place anyway. It felt like the next logical step. Looking back now, I realize that's when things slowly started to shift. But it wasn't obvious. He didn't change overnight. It was subtle. At first, it was small things. He forgot to transfer his half of the rent until I reminded him. Then it was the dishes piling up because he had a rough day. I picked up the slack because I thought that's what you do when you love someone. I became the stable one. The grown-up. The cleaner, the planner, the provider of snacks and support and comfort and folded laundry. Meanwhile, he made promises about a business he was going to launch. Big plans, he said. Just give it time. I gave it time. I gave him time. I gave until I didn't recognize myself anymore. It didn't happen all at once. It was like being caught in a fog, one I didn't even know was there until it finally lifted. Until the party. Until the words. Until I saw him for what he really was, not the guy I met that Halloween night, but someone who saw my care as convenience. Someone who thought loyalty meant being walked on. I used to think I was lucky to have found him. But now? I just wonder how I didn't see through the costume sooner. I used to tell people Tyler and I didn't fight much. I thought that meant we had a strong relationship. In reality, it meant I swallowed everything before it could turn into a fight. He never yelled. He never hit me. But the damage he did? It came in quieter ways. It started with the jokes. You gonna wear that? God, you sound like my mom right now. Don't be so sensitive, babe. I'm just messing with you. He'd laugh, and I'd force a smile, pretending it didn't sting. Like the time I cooked dinner after a 10-hour shift and he said, "Did you just throw leftovers in a pan and call it a meal?" Or when I talked about applying for a promotion at work and he smirked, "You really think you're cut out for that?" Little things. Micro cuts. Individually harmless. But over time, I was bleeding. When I brought up how I felt, he'd flip it. "You always overthink everything. You take everything so seriously. Why can't we just be chill like we used to?" So I stopped bringing things up. I let the laundry pile up because I was the only one who'd notice. I stopped asking about his job or that business he was supposedly building because every time I did, he got defensive. I told myself it was a phase. Everyone goes through rough patches. We stopped going on dates. Stopped holding hands. Stopped making plans. I'd ask if he wanted to hang out and he'd shrug, "You can if you want, but the guys are coming over." The guys were a permanent fixture in our apartment, feet on the coffee table, beer bottles everywhere, laughing at stuff I didn't find funny. And when I was in the room, I was either invisible or the butt of a joke. One night, I overheard him say to one of his friends, "She's great for the domestic stuff, but like, passion? Nah." They laughed. I pretended I didn't hear it. I started staying late at work just to avoid going home. I remember sitting in the parking lot one night, just staring at the steering wheel, thinking, is this really it? This is love? But the thing is, when you're in it, you convince yourself it's not that bad. You compare it to worse stories. You tell yourself he's just stressed, that you're just tired, that things will get better when the money comes in, when the pressure eases, when he grows up. Spoiler, he didn't. And then came the guilt. The quiet shame of feeling unappreciated, but still craving his approval. Like somehow, if I just did a little more, cleaned a little better, cooked a little nicer, smiled a little more, he'd see me again. Like he used to. But he didn't want a partner. He wanted a placeholder. And I let myself be one. Right up until that party. That night didn't come out of nowhere. It was the final crack in something that had been splintering for months. Years, maybe. And when it broke, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just finally let it fall. I didn't sleep that night. After the party, I sat in our car for over an hour with the engine off, watching the condensation form and drip down the windshield. My fingers were clenched so tight around my phone that my knuckles ached, but I never called anyone. I didn't even cry. I just stared. When I finally walked into our apartment, Tyler was already inside, still drunk, flopped on the couch with a smug look like nothing had happened. "You were being dramatic," he said, not even glancing up from his phone. "You always get like that when you've had a drink." I hadn't had more than one drink all night. I didn't answer him. Just walked past him and into our shared bedroom, quietly pulling out a duffel bag from under the bed. I wasn't even sure what I was doing yet. My body moved on autopilot: jeans, a couple shirts, chargers, toiletries. I grabbed my work bag, zipped it all up, and left it by the door. I didn't leave right then. I wasn't ready. But I needed that bag to be ready. Because something in me had shifted. Snapped. Burned up and turned to ash. The next morning, he woke up with a headache and zero remorse. Made coffee, scrolled Instagram, and looked at me with raised eyebrows like nothing had happened. "You good?" he asked, sipping his coffee. I wanted to scream. To ask if he even remembered what he said. But instead, I just said, "Yeah, I'm good." That day, I went to work, answered emails, smiled politely at customers. But inside, I was packing everything up. Mentally folding up the relationship like old laundry, preparing to put it away forever. That night, I didn't cook dinner. He noticed. "Did we run out of groceries?" he asked, already half into a bag of chips. I shrugged. "Nope. You mad about something again?" I turned to him. My voice was calm. "Do you even remember what you said last night?" He squinted at me like I was annoying him. "What, at the party?" Babe, come on. I was joking. Everyone laughed. Yeah, I said. They did. So what, you're really upset over that? I'm not upset, I said, standing up. I'm done. He blinked like the words didn't compute. Done with what? This, I said, gesturing around the apartment. Us. He laughed. Like a real, full laugh. You're being ridiculous. You're not going anywhere. And that was the moment I realized something important. He really didn't believe I could leave. That night, I didn't sleep beside him. I slept on the couch, fully dressed, bag at my side like a soldier waiting for orders. The next morning, before the sun even rose, I picked up my bag, walked out the door, and didn't look back. No note. No fight. No announcement. Just silence. Because sometimes silence says everything. I stayed at my friend Julia's that first night. She had no idea what had happened, just opened the door at 6:47 a.m. with her hair a mess and eyes still puffy from sleep. I didn't even say anything, just stood there on her porch with my bag slung over my shoulder and a look she immediately understood. She let me in. No questions, just a hug. And I think that's when the tears finally came. I cried until I couldn't anymore. Not sobbing, not loud. Just this quiet, steady kind of crying where your whole body feels like it's deflating. Like you've been holding something in for so long, and once it slips out, there's no stopping it. I stayed in Julia's guest room that day, phone on silent, lights off. And when I finally checked my notifications around noon, there were 3 unread texts from Tyler. Tyler, you serious? Tyler, we need to talk. Tyler, at least come get the rest of your stuff. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just disbelief that I'd actually left. And then something surprising happened. His friends started reaching out. First it was Cal, the one who always laughed the loudest at Tyler's jokes. He'd med me on Instagram. Hey, I know that party got messy. Tyler was out of line. Just wanted to say I'm sorry for laughing. That wasn't cool. Then Marcus. Didn't realize how bad it was until after you left. For what it's worth, he's freaking out. And then Tyler's mom. She called me. I didn't answer. Then she left a voicemail. She sounded wrecked. Hi, sweetheart, it's Lisa. I just heard what happened. Tyler told me something about a fight, but I had no idea. Please call me. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to be hurt by him. Please just let me know you're okay. That was when I realized how deep his performance ran. Even to his own family, he was spinning this as some little disagreement. Not the emotional erosion of a relationship. Not the public humiliation of the person who supported him for over a year. He was rewriting the story to make himself the confused victim. But I wasn't playing that role anymore. That week, I went back to our apartment, my apartment really, while he was at work. Julia came with me. I brought 2 suitcases and a trash bag for the stuff I never wanted to see again. Took my things, left his on the bed in a neat pile. I even refolded the hoodie he always stole from me and placed it on top. There was a note too, but not the kind he probably expected. It said, "You were right. I am too boring for this." No signature. No PS. Just that. Then I left the key on the kitchen counter, locked the door, and walked away. He called me 5 times that night. Texted long, emotional paragraphs about how I blindsided him, how he didn't mean it like that, how he thought I knew it was just jokes. But the thing is, when someone shows you who they are, you can't unsee it. And he showed me, loud and clear, in a room full of people, that I was never his partner. Just a prop in his little sitcom. I used to think love was supposed to hurt sometimes. Now I know better. It didn't happen all at once. Regret doesn't show up neatly packaged with an apology and a bouquet of flowers. No, with Tyler, it showed up in stages, first as confusion, then panic, then a full-on breakdown masquerading as remorse. The first couple of days, he was still stuck in disbelief mode. Texts like, "So that's it? You're seriously just gone? I didn't think you'd actually leave over one night." But I didn't reply. Not once. And silence? It drives people like Tyler insane. By the end of that week, his messages turned frantic. "Can we please talk? I didn't mean any of it. I was drunk. You're blowing this out of proportion." I didn't respond to that either. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that people who hurt you will always try to shrink your pain. Make it small. Easier to dismiss. And then came the guilt trip phase. "You were the best thing I had. I miss waking up next to you. You know I suck at showing emotions. Please don't hold that against me." It was almost impressive how fast he rewrote the narrative, from calling me pathetic in front of a crowd to calling me the love of his life over text. 2 weeks in, he showed up at Julia's. He didn't even knock. just stood outside her apartment like a lost dog, holding a cardboard box and that stupid hoodie I'd left folded on his bed. Julia cracked the door, barely. She doesn't want to see you. I just want to talk, he said, voice cracked and eyes red. Please. I messed up. I know I did. She shut the door in his face. Because that's what best friends do. But I watched it all from down the hall, just out of sight. He looked awful. Pale. Slouched. Like all the bravado had drained out of him, and all that was left was a boy who thought no one would ever leave him. That night, he emailed me. A whole email. Subject line. Please read. It was long. Rambling. The kind of apology you send when you're spiraling. He wrote about how he'd been depressed. How his jokes were just masks. How he felt insecure next to me, like he didn't deserve me, and so he tore me down instead of lifting me up. He wrote about how scared he was that I'd never love him again. He was right about that part. The final line read, "If you ever come back, I swear I'll be better." I didn't respond. Because I didn't leave for him to get better for me. I left so I could get better for myself. It took me a long time to realize I never wanted him to beg. I never wanted to hurt him. I just wanted him to see me before it was too late. But he didn't. And now? He'll spend every birthday, every party, every late night looking at his phone, wondering how he fumbled a girl who actually loved him. Not because I ghosted him, but because I grew past him. I think people expect revenge to be loud, explosive, screaming in someone's face, throwing their stuff out the window, making dramatic Instagram captions. But real peace? The kind that comes after walking away from someone who never truly saw you? It's quiet. It's me on a Sunday morning, sitting on my little balcony, drinking coffee in my favorite oversized sweatshirt, not checking my phone. It's knowing no one's going to interrupt my silence with passive-aggressive jokes or immature sarcasm masked as teasing. It's freedom. Not flashy or wild, just soft and solid and mine. I got a new apartment a month after I left him. Small, but bright. Sunlight pours in through the window at 9 a.m. and hits the kitchen counter just right. I bought a table I love, a plant I haven't killed yet, and plates that actually match. It's the kind of space that feels like a reset button. Clean. Uncluttered. Honest. The first time I realized I was really okay again was so dumb and simple. I laughed at a meme and instinctively picked up my phone to send it to someone, and then I paused. Because for the first time in years, I didn't have someone to send it to. And weirdly, that didn't hurt. It felt peaceful. I thought I'd feel empty without him. I thought I'd miss the sound of his voice, or the way he held me when I was tired. But what I missed most was me. The version of me before I started shrinking. Before I got used to walking on eggshells. Before I let his disappointment in me become the lens I saw myself through. Now, I laugh louder. Sleep better. Eat what I want without side comments. Wear what I like without anyone rolling their eyes. Sometimes I see him pop up in my people you may know feed, or hear from a friend of a friend that he's still figuring things out. I don't block him. I don't stalk his page. I don't need to. Because the best closure I ever got wasn't from an apology or a grand gesture. It was from the silence that came after choosing myself. Tyler thought I wouldn't leave. He thought I'd keep tolerating his bare minimum, keep accepting his breadcrumbs of affection, keep being his convenience. But he was wrong. Because I did leave. And I didn't come back. And that's the kind of story I want to be the main character in.